Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed, and here we have... What is this thing? Oh, that's right, it's a sewing machine. This is a Willcox Gibbs sewing machine, and this particular model, based on the serial number, was built in 1878. It's a very old sewing machine. I got it on eBay. Very old machine, but it is a machine that does work great, but I don't know if I would sew regular clothing with it that I would wear on a regular basis, because the type of stitch that it makes is called a chain stitch. Most sewing machines that we know today create a lock stitch. They are made with two threads, an upper thread, which we see here, and a lower thread on a bobbin. And each stitch, stitch by stitch, is locked together, lock stitch, with the upper and lower thread based on the way it's designed. This is not one of these sewing machines. This is actually the same kind of concept. You got your needle, you got your presser foot, you got your feed dogs, which are these little groovy things here that move the material along. But then underneath, there's no bobbin, because what you have is a hook. This little hook here spins around, grabs the thread off the needle, and it goes really, really fast. And it just basically is just looping the thread around itself, around and around and around. And when you're done sewing, if you were to accidentally pop one piece of that thread, the whole thing can very easily become undone. So chain stitching wasn't ideal for durability, but it does so great. And being that this particular model, built in the 1800s, still works today, I'm really impressed. I gave it a little bit of TLC, I oiled everything up really nice, and I ran it for a while. And I'll show you just how cool this thing is. This is the thread holder, okay? So it's a little spindle here. You put the spool of thread on it, and you put it, connect it like so. The thread then comes across. I do this here. It comes off the spool, comes across through this hole in the arm, which is a little difficult to get to. Some people use a crocheting needle to go through, grab that thread and pull it back onto this side, and then it comes down here, crisscrossing over the tensioner. This is a tensioner which keeps the tension on the thread so that each stitch is formed correctly, through this little eyelet hole, down here through this little hook thing. And if you wanted more tension, depending on the type of stitches you were making, you could also thread it through here, which is a springed little thing. It then comes up through this little oval shaped piece which moves. The thread comes down through this little eyelet, and then down, down, down into the eye of the needle, and then you put the thread underneath the presser foot, and away you go. For being built in 1878, the only thing that's missing, and maybe that's why I got it for so cheap, I don't really know, gorgeous gold ornate lettering, scroll work, all kinds of fancy flowery looking things would say Willcox Gibbs over here, down here, you know, all kinds of along the base, all kinds of here, you know, it's all worn off, but you can clearly see, you know, that it is definitely an old Willcox Gibbs sewing machine. New York, London, and Paris. Tons of dates on here. Patent July 1871, looks like. And so not too long after that, in 1878, is when this beauty was made. This is the electric version. It's in the shape of the letter G for trivial questions, backwards G if you're looking at it this way. On the other side you would see it forms the letter G for Gibbs, Willcox Gibbs. This is the base here, okay, and it is actually bolted to this bracket, or this base here, over here, to add the motor to make this thing motorized. But if you'll notice that the flywheel here has a groove, and you can easily make this thing treadle driven, because oftentimes that's what you did. It was either hand crank or treadle driven, not electric, but this is a special model that has the electric motor added to it for the convenience of pressing on the foot pedal. The design is very simple. It's a rod, two different rods here that come up, and an offset piece of metal in here, and it just creates the vibration, the up and down rocking motion over this pivoted point around, and then down to the needle that goes that up and down. The feed dogs are the same as most sewing machines. They're the little groovy things that move the material along. And again, this is a chain stitch sewing machine. Beautiful condition, and I will show you in just a moment how it works. But considering it's such an old sewing machine, I'm really impressed. In fact, here, I'll show you real quick. Here's a sample. This is the back side of what the chain stitch looks like. Okay, the chain stitch is beautiful. It's fine on the front like this. This is just paper towel, by the way. That's a regular looking stitch on the front, but the back is where the beauty is. Okay, so if you're doing special work that needs that specific look, the chain stitch, just beautiful stitching. You know, I just made a little wacky design there, but you'll see that every little stitch is almost perfect. You know, and again, the problem with it is if you break one piece of that thread, the whole thing will come undone. So, pros and cons of a machine like this, and then I'll get to the other sewing machine that I have later, the Singer sewing machine. It's also antique, but that uses two threads, an upper thread and a lower thread. The bobbin is what makes it a lock stitch, which makes this type of sewing a bit obsolete. But for its time, amazing piece of machinery. So stand by, and we're going to run this thing. And you know, when I got this sewing machine out of the box from on eBay, I noticed that things were rather stiff, and I was a little worried that the presser foot, here's the little lever to raise your, hold on a second, let's get this focused better, to raise the presser foot. I mean, this thing wasn't working at all. It was just totally frozen, and look, it just flies like crazy now. You know, I got everything all oiled up, cleaned everything up really good, and it's known for its quietness. Most of the noise that you're going to hear is from the motor. Okay, so if you were to do this thing with a hand crank or with a treadle, you could sew probably next to a baby, and while the baby's sleeping. A very, very quiet machine. Really cool for its time, especially for its age to be so quiet. But here we go. Okay, so while I press down on the foot pedal, let's see this little beauty in action. Funny looking machine, huh? And here we have the actual device that makes the lock. I'm sorry, the chain. Okay, so see, the hook is going to come up as the needle's coming down. You see the needle coming down with the thread, and this thing is going to loop and grab that thread as it's being pulled up, but the thread can't come back up because look, that hook has grabbed the thread. It's going to wrap the thread around itself like so, and it's going to slip off the end of that other piece as the hook is coming back around again. Here comes the needle, here comes the hook, grabs it, and that chain, see, now it's releasing, so now it releases the last stitch right in time for the next stitch to come back around, And once again, here comes the needle coming down, coming down. You'll see the needle right there with the thread as that hook grabs it. And that's the simplicity of a chain stitch. It's very, very simple in its design, but very innovative for its day. And this will just happen very, very quickly. In fact, I'll show you at full speed. See that? You can't even see it. It's so fast. And here we have the speed on this side at full speed. Made the whole table vibrate. Okay, so from what I'm understanding, the way you stop this thing from coming undone is this. The last stitch that was made, you then take, when you're done, take the flywheel and turn it in the other direction, okay? You're going to turn it towards you. Normally it's turned away from you. When you turn it towards you, it will release the thread from the hook below, and you'll be able to pull it out like this. But watch what happens. Okay, so now, I can show this to you. If you'll see here, if you don't lock it, watch what happens. So, oh my goodness, all my work is coming undone. Right? So how do you stop that? Well, this is what you're supposed to do. Okay, so what you want to do is, if I get this thing to focus, take out the take the material and flip it over. There's the beautiful stitches, but you'll find that there'll be one little thread that you can kind of grab, and I've seen other people do it differently, but this is, I'm just learning, so if I'm doing this wrong, please let me know. You're going to grab that last piece of thread, and you're going to pull it. I missed it. I got to pull this one. Hold on a second. I'm trying to do this with one hand on the camcorder. Hold on. Did I just say camcorder? I'm using my cell phone. Anyway, so you're going to pull this through to the back side where these beautiful stitches are. You're going to pull like the last thread. Okay, and then tug on that nice and tight. And you're going to find that's going to kind of lock it. But I'm sure there's another way to do it even tighter. But this will stop it. So your end thread, the last stitch, should be on the bottom side, and the first stitch would start off, if I could find it, here's the top side. So you're going to start off this tail end on the top, and the last stitch you're going to flip it around and pull this thread through to the bottom side, and this will stop. As you can see the holes there where the thread came undone. This is why when the lock stitch sewing machines came out, this thing was like blown away. It was like, no, forget it, you know. But look at these beautiful stitches. They're just perfectly made, especially for a machine that's so old. Beautifully made. And you could do all kinds of colored threads. Like I said, you could embroider stuff, or, you know, whatever you want to do with something that's more decorative. And for the authenticity of doing it on such an old, but still completely functional sewing machine. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Willcox Gibbs sewing machine. Very old, beautiful piece of machinery. I hope you enjoyed this, and again, if I said anything wrong, I'm just learning about this machine. If I've said anything wrong, please leave me a comment below. I don't know everything about this machine. I just simply know that I thought when I first saw it, what an ugly looking machine, and I thought, it's so ugly I have to have it. So, if that makes any sense, it's like, yes, I have to have this thing. It's ugly, but I love it. It's ugly because it doesn't fit the standard shape and design of a sewing machine of today's standards, but it was the innovative sewing machine of its day. Certainly, it was used for many years, and then Singer came along and kind of took over everything, and then we have, you know, newer technology on how we sew.